Well, John, we're at it again. Another award show. I've gotten in trouble for these, you might have heard.
Yeah, I remember that. I think I might have had something to do with it. So, so this time I went out and actually bought a commercial trophy. And for those of you who haven't been with us on one of our award shows, it's very, very exciting. This is a big show, very exciting show. As you guys can see, I dressed up for the occasion. I wore my really good black shirt. And I went to Target, and for those of you who shop at Target, you know that you can find some really fine items there. And so these are the trophies that we're going to be giving out tonight, and these are the Cullen Awards.
Hang on a second. Before you get me sued again, it's important that people realize that this is not an actual awards show, and as you can see from the base of the Cullen Award there, this is not an actual award. This entire thing is a send-up. It's a parody. This is not an Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Not even close.
This is Fauci.
No. Yeah, not even close. So the reason that we do these award shows is because you know that award shows are very important to me, right? I grew up with award shows back when they meant something. And recently, I haven't seen any of the movies that they mention in these award shows. I don't think a lot of people have. So it's become really irrelevant. So I thought it'd be really interesting to put together a number of awards and a number of categories that actually matter. Because movies, I think Martin Scorsese said it. He said, Hollywood is becoming irrelevant with all this, Marvel stuff and everything is superheroes. Nobody's making films anymore. Now imagine a movie like Moonstruck. You remember Moonstruck?
I disagreed with Scorsese on that. I found that obnoxious. I mean, he's saying my brand of movies are good, but yours aren't. And actually, Jon Favreau expressed some dissatisfaction. I mean, here's what I'll say. Everybody knows who's watched the show that I had a prior career in Hollywood. I've met Martin Scorsese. He's bizarre. You might not know this. He is a fan of 3D. And so he came to a number of different International 3D Society events. I actually have a 3D photograph that I took of Martin Scorsese with Lenny Lipton, who sadly died last October. And then I processed that photo in a nice auto stereo 3D lenticular print in a backlit frame. It cost a lot of money. And then I went to this Digital Cinema Society event where Scorsese was, he was giving an event about Ip Man, which was a movie made by this very well-known Chinese filmmaker. And I sat right in the front row because this Ip Man, I don't know, somehow, I think I knew somebody who was working on the movie and they were talking about doing it in 3D and it didn't get done in 3D. And I sat right in the front row of the Q&A and I asked the Chinese director, did you consider doing this movie in 3D? Scorsese flipped out. He was like, yes, 3D. Did you do the movie in 3D? And the director spoke about how they had planned to do that. Days after this Q&A, they announced that they converted or planned to convert this Chinese Ip Man movie into 3D. I hate 3D conversion, but this is a big, long sort of side issue on Hollywood stuff that has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about tonight on the sponsor exclusive segment. People are going to be able to watch that on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and Odyssey, and also on Substack. I forgot to mention, I gave this very expensive 3D photo to Martin Scorsese along with a 3D Blu-ray disc of Julia X, the film I was a cinematographer on. And he ran out of the room, didn't say thank you. He's a weird guy.
I think people like that get stuff all the time. And it's hard for them to appreciate how meaningful it was for you to put it together, because people are always giving them things, and it's very difficult for them to discern the difference between somebody just like, here's my demo tape, used to be kind of the
It's a 3D picture of himself. No one's ever given him that before.
I get it. And this is how you get to see the true character of people. There's some people who would have said, wow, that's really thoughtful of you. This must have taken a lot of time, and can't believe you did this. Nobody's ever given me anything like that. That would be another reaction that would have been a little bit more appropriate. But I don't know if you've ever seen Martin Scorsese on the red carpet, because he's not much taller than the actual pile of the carpet. So it's very, he doesn't stick out very high.
Shorter than me.
The actual, significantly. I think it's like 5'2". So, but he's a great filmmaker. And one of the most exciting things about a show like tonight is the red carpet. And I'm really excited to see who's on the red carpet before we go to our patron-only hour, where we're going to look at all these different categories. So I've got a whole bunch of material. We got the red carpet stuff. And that's in our deck tonight. We can share that with YouTube before we go to patron-only content.
Yeah.
Favreau?
Well, you got me on a tear with this Martin Scorsese thing, because I found it really, like, who the hell is he to say movies that he likes and he makes are valid, but movies about Iron Man or whatever Jon Favreau likes is not. And Favreau lamented that he said that because he considered Scorsese a hero. And frankly, you know, the venue shouldn't matter. It should be, are the characters compelling? Is the story compelling? It could be an allegory for anything. I didn't like it that he said that, but whatever.
I understand.
What are we going to talk about tonight, John?
Well, let's hop over to our deck and let's take a quick look at what's happening at this award show, because everybody's, coming in on the red carpet, and I want to make sure we don't miss anybody because there's some very big names coming tonight. On Twitter this weekend, looks like I picked up another couple hundred followers, and I'm tickling the underside of 10,000 people.
Look at that
on Twitter. So maybe by tomorrow or Sunday, I'll have 10,000. That's pretty cool.
Well, if we have 41 people watching right now who aren't following John on Twitter, you can go there. He is at I_am_John Cullen. Great way to interact with John. Now, one of your Twitter buddies has been kind of dragged over the coals. Did you see what happened with Steve Kirsch?
Oh, yeah. He's in one of the segments tonight. He's in one of the award categories. Oh, yeah. So he's in a award category.
Talk about him and see why the New York Post says he's a creep.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Oh,
we'll have
look,
to take
amazing snake cat. Maybe this is responsible for a future pandemic. We have wolf. What do they have now? Wolf raccoons? No, dog raccoons.
Yeah, the raccoon dog nonsense. Yeah, we're not even going to touch that tonight. But I did want to talk about the Oscars, because the Oscars were Sunday night. And we are allowed to review and critique. That we are allowed to do. And there's a story in Yahoo about how the ratings have risen to a 3-year high. But they say, but there's a catch. And the catch is on the next slide. And I thought that this was interesting. The show Sunday night, the Oscar ceremony, was the third lowest rated Oscars since Nielsen began tracking the show. So ever. Ahead. So the only shows that it did better than was last year's show and the show before, based on coronavirus. So the fact that they're patting themselves on the back for being the third worst of all time, again, you guys need to be a little bit more critical of yourselves.
I love it that you found that, because you know what? Yeah. You said to me before on the phone that you thought nobody was watching. And I said, what are you talking about? They said it was an increase in viewers. But see, look at how they trick us right there. We've got Brian in the comments wanting me to do a show about the French New Wave. I have so much to say about who's that guy with the disgusting mustache and the close-up on the microphone. He did a 3D movie. It was terrible. Godot? I don't know, or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Well, you should do that. You can come on my show as a guest and we'll talk about 3D.
Yeah, we can do that.
About that. I love that stuff. I love that camera stuff.
But people hate the Oscars. And nobody got slapped, so it's not even interesting.
No. Well, we don't have Oscars, so we have this thing. And again, I purchased this at Target. I like Target, right? That's where I went. I went to Target and I purchased these. Okay, you see this? So these are actual trophies. And as you said before, we're not actually giving them out to people, but some people are here to receive their awards. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. Now, but what is that a trophy for? It looks like a guy who's just, it's like a pissing contest trophy or something.
Oh, he's got his hands on his hips, so he's a little sick of waiting around. So, well, we'll say each one of these categories gets a little bit more interesting. So why don't we take a look at who's on the red carpet? Because I see limos pulling up left and right.
Oh, wow.
And now keep in mind, tonight's red carpet is brought to you by Moderna. They're sponsoring tonight's red carpet coverage.
No, they're not. Don't say stuff like that.
No, we're very grateful. Moderna brings you the red carpet at the John Cullen Awards. So thank you to Moderna for paying for the carpeting.
He's joking.
Beautiful carpeting. Beautiful. So here we have on the red carpet, we have the illustrious Dr. Fauci. I love the lighting. It's a really good photograph of Fauci on the upper left. He looks great on the red carpet. Fabulous lighting, by the way. It's a super photograph. Yeah, the guy who took the photograph is a famous guy. I forget who it is. It's on the tip of my tongue, but he's great. Next in, we have Francis Collins, and I'm really glad that Francis brought his expensive guitar with him. That looks like a $5,000 or $6,000 custom guitar that Francis is bringing. Yeah, oh yeah.
Is this custom DNA on the fretboard or something?
Yeah, The double strand, custom made for him. And then we have, of course, Rochelle Walensky on the upper right, and she looks great tonight on the red carpet. I'm glad that she's here. Hopefully,
who is this person? Or two. This is Brian May.
This is Marion Koopmans. Marion Koopmans. Oh yeah, very famous. Marion
Who is that
person? One of the most very famous epidemiologist, virologist, super famous, very big on Twitter. I think she, works with the WHO or something like that. And then the woman next to her on the right, that of course is Janet Woodcock.
Oh yeah,
very glad to have Ms. Woodcock here. It's great. She's looking good as ever. And then next to her is Ron Fouchier from Erasmus in the Netherlands. And he's considered the father of everything that's a little bit weird.
Now, wait a minute. So you're saying this person is in the WHO. I thought Brian May was in Queen.
Yeah. So Brian May just got knighted this week, which is great.
He's a jerk.
So that's exciting. Yeah, well, that's exciting. With his homemade guitar.
I met him.
So everybody on the red carpet
as well.
Yeah, he's not actually nominated for any of the awards tonight, but it's nice to see Brian May on his knees. I like that. So let's why don't we go to the first category, because we've got a couple awards we can give out tonight while we're on YouTube. These are YouTube safe. And before we go to our patron only segment of the award show, which is probably a little bit less safe but a lot more fun and interesting.
Yeah.
All right, the first category. The first category that we have tonight is the number one death rate in the world for COVID. So over the course of the past 3 years, what country? We've got 4 nominees. We've got Belarus, Belgium, Peru, and the USA nominated for the number one death rate in the world.
Do you want me to guess?
You can take a crack.
I think it's USA. Oh, Peru. I probably should have known that.
Peru is the winner. Do we have some music for Peru to come on up and pick up their award?
I don't.
We'd like to congratulate Peru on a remarkable death accomplishment with more people dead per million.
Copyright struck. Dude,
No. More people dead per million than any country on earth. We're, really remarkable to say it is Peru.
Now, hang on. We got to slow down a second here. This is the stuff we want to talk about on Subscribestar, Patreon, Odyssey, and Substack, because there's a litany of idiots who want to seize on anything we say to try to strike the video.
Well, the data is right there. So the data, the deaths per million is what we're measuring. So what's important to understand here is the rubric. What are we measuring?
I don't know.
Deaths per million. So if you measure deaths per million, the number one country in the world is Peru. And, that's not good. That's bad. But that means they did the worst. So for the country that did the worst, they should get a trophy, right? I mean, everybody's got over 2. There's more people dead in Peru than China.
Really?
Right? So, yeah, so they certainly should get a trophy. I mean, but as far as who has like the most dead per capita, it's Peru.
I guess not that many people live in Peru. So the United States, from a per capita, is this whole list here per capita?
Yeah, it's per million. Yeah, deaths per million. So Peru's 34 million people, and they've got over 200,000 dead, which is more than China.
The U.S.
More
doesn't
than
even
Japan.
register. Oh, we're number 15.
Correct. So Peru is number 1, Bulgaria is number 2, Hungary is number 3, but the trophy, the award, number 1 goes to Peru. Now, not everybody gets to be a winner, right? Somebody's got to be number 1, and Peru is number 1, and that means they did the worst.
Right. It's confusing to follow the John Cullen Awards shows because we're awarding.
Yeah, the logic is because we go by, right? It's like socks, right? We go by thickness. We do things a little bit differently around here. Now, the next category is very exciting. I think you're nominated, in fact, in the next category, which is you are producing best story about the Nord Stream pipeline. The nominees are The White House, The Russians Did It to Themselves, Monkey Works with the Poseidon P8 theory and content, and then The Guardian, saying it was probably a yacht, is nominated. And then the Cy Hirsch story with Jason Goodman producing. So we've got 4 nominees in this category. If you jump ahead, let's tell everybody about one of the nominees. We want to focus in on one of the nominees, which is the story from The Guardian that saboteurs aboard a yacht sailed out to the middle of the place where the pipeline was in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning. The divers went down 200 feet from the yacht, and then they made their escape at 9 knots, 9.9 miles an hour. They rocketed it away 3.5 hours to get back to port. It's 35 miles from port out to where the pipeline was burst. Using a yacht like this, what a remarkable story this is. And you have to hand it to The Guardian for having the guts to publish something like that.
I got a question. Well, you know a lot about boats, and I mean, I guess we don't know exactly, and neither of us are really experts on explosions, but I mean, don't they need a lot of explosives to bomb that pipeline? And could this boat even carry all that? And if you filled it up with explosives to do that, wouldn't there be, you could test this boat and find explosives all over the place? They found like a little bit on a table or something. What about the Poseidon P8?
It's about the least appropriate vessel to go where you needed to go, 35 miles out to sea, do what you need to do, dive 240 feet down, plant explosives, detonate them, and make a getaway at 9 miles an hour?
What about the heliox stuff you would need to do that kind of technical dive?
All of the above. It's absurd. It's absurd is the point, and that's why they're nominated. Now, you had Cy Hirsch on the show a couple weeks ago, right? Cy Hirsch came on as a guest. He had just published his story, and I don't know, can you run like 30 seconds of that clip? Is that up on YouTube or something? Can you just show everybody Cy Hirsch just saying a couple words? Because that's also really important. I don't know that Cy Hirsch mentioned the yacht.
No, he actually. So he did an appearance after our interview where he was at the National Press Club, and he said that it's absurd, this story about the yacht. Everybody is so fixated on who his sources are. Why don't they just think for a moment about the logic of what he's saying versus the logic? Everybody is very obsessed with this notion that if you can trust a particular person or who they are, or, who cares? I want to know what the Boeing plane was doing there, who was motivated to bomb the thing, and who had the technological capability to do it. You charter a sailboat like that, don't you? So you've told us you had a business like this at one point, and aren't you interacting a lot with the people who are renting the boat? And wouldn't you notice if they had blown up a pipeline with it? And it just seems weird.
Yeah, they show up with a bunch of equipment to go diving down below 200 feet, and they have explosives with them. Yeah,
you'd know.
Of course you're gonna. Yeah,
and you're like, wait a minute, this is my boat. It costs a lot of money. Get those bombs out of here.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we were talking about, are they balloons or are they aliens? Right? I mean, that was 3 weeks ago, and now
they revealed that Joe Biden hasn't spoken to Xi about that balloon.
Right. Well, there's that. And again, so that was a story 3 weeks ago, was absurd. And now the Guardian is telling us that we've got a sailboat that goes 9 miles an hour. And that was the getaway vehicle. But the previous story, come on, the White House told us that the Russians blew up their own pipeline so that they couldn't sell any of the stuff that they sell to finance the war, which made a lot of sense. So we've got a lot of really good nominees. And the winner, ladies and gentlemen, coming up for his award, Monkey Works, is the winner in this category for the best story about the Nord Stream pipeline. Monkey Works provides the data, provides
Definitely
the receipts.
solid evidence. Yeah, I agree with this
Right?
victory. And it shows we're unbiased.
And again, it's just a matter of, well, now we have evidence. It's not proof. It's evidence that there was a Boeing Poseidon P-8 in the vicinity and a fueling tanker, because you see these guys going around racetrack pattern. And who owns one of those things, right? Is that not relevant? And so as important and as interesting as the Cy Hirsch story was, there was something very tangible about seeing this breadcrumb trail from Monkey Works. And I think we have to tip our hat to Monkey Works. He's done a phenomenal job again and again with content. And we've come back to his content repeatedly. And so we've got a trophy here tonight for Monkey Works. You did it again, bro. Nice work.
No one's actually getting any trophies. Just to reiterate, we've got a write-in candidate, John, from the audience. Hippie Blue would like to nominate Stormy Daniels as Best Hoe. There's a
well, the best hoe category is coming up after the break. We have Best Hoe. And I don't want to give anything away because it's a very popular category. So but all right, we have one more. Do we have 2 more minutes before we go to the patron only show?
Do.
Okay, so all right, so we've got one more category that we can do, and this is one of my favorite categories. I know the audience has been very excited for this category, and this is the number one comorbidity of COVID in the USA. And so we've got a couple of finalists, right? So nominated for number one comorbidity are diabetes, right? So everybody, diabetes. Also, it's USA, so obesity, right? You know about corn syrup and right? There's a lot of corn syrup, a lot of obesity.
I know about Corn Pop. He was a bad dude.
He was a bad dude, but he was slim. He was very
slim. He rolled with a lot of bad dudes.
Yeah, but he wasn't obese. He was slim. He wasn't into the corn syrup.
Yeah.
Renal failure. We have a lot of people died with renal failure. Is renal failure the number one comorbidity? And then, of course, P&I, the thing that used to kill people before COVID showed up. So if you want, we can do a little drum roll here and see what do we have.
Well, this one I think I can guess at. And I know that renal failure is going to make a face, not be a good sport when it loses, but it's definitely pneumonia and influenza.
The winner by a mile. P&I, come on up for your trophy. We'd like to welcome. Now, keep in mind that on the page from the CDC, they call it influenza and pneumonia. They don't call it pneumonia and influenza. They don't call it P&I. They call it influenza and pneumonia. If you zoom in there on that table where it says winner.
Is that to confuse people?
I don't know. But what does it say? It says influenza and pneumonia with over 500,000 deaths had both influenza, pneumonia, and COVID-19. They're not calling it P&I. And they're not calling it pneumonia. What are they calling it, Jason? It doesn't say pneumonia. What does it say?
Influenza and pneumonia.
There you go. Influenza and pneumonia. 520,000 people of the 112,000. Now, when the 112,000, the 1,112,000, that's everybody that died with COVID.
Well, John, we've got a last-minute write-in candidate. Master of Blackjack wants to nominate Ashley Biden as the best hoe.
Ashley,
she's getting money.
Come on.
Right? Was that Ashley or Haley?
From China. She's the new
so many of these Bidens.
Haley Biden. It's not Ashley, it's Haley. Ashley's got the diary. Haley was getting the cut. Haley was getting the cut. Ashley was doing the diary, taking showers. So, but yeah, we've got 500,000 people here that died with COVID and influenza. The interesting twist is Only 5% of that big number on top, the 1.1 million, only 5% had just COVID on the death certificate. It's like 55,000 people. So if 55,000 people died with just COVID and over 500,000 had COVID and influenza, we didn't treat the influenza part. People weren't given Zofluza, Relenza, and other antivirals because the doctors didn't know they had it. Doctors had no way to know their patients had a double infection.
Now, John, we're out of time here. We're going to continue the conversation and the Parody Awards show on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. People can also join us on one of the Crowdsource the Truth sponsor exclusive platforms, Subscribestar, Patreon, Odyssey, and now Substack. And we've got Brian is with us in the comments on YouTube, very concerned about the comorbidity of pee in the eye. You get pink eye from that, so watch out.
Very painful,
kind of
very painful. Try and avoid it at all costs.
Brian is going to, but we'll be back in just a moment. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you over there on Patreon, Subscribestar, Odyssey.